What's up, fellow lords of gaming, and welcome back to the channel. So today what I want to do is jump into the Goblin Queen update specifically and talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Epic Quest. So yeah, man, it's gonna be hard to say anything good about this Epic Quest. That's just the truth of the matter. There's nothing good to tell you about this Epic Quest, and I do mean that. Nothing is good about the Goblin Queen Quest. So let's talk about the bad and let's talk about the ugly. Let's start off with the ugly because that's probably the easiest place to start at, right? The ugliest place is that essentially what we got after basically having a drought of Epic Quests since the Eternals update, right? We know how long ago that was. They finally give us a new Epic Quest and it's just a copy paste. That's it. It's a copy paste of every single Epic Quest that has come before it. The one thing that I could say, at least for the Eternals update, was, hey, you know, there was the presentation of it, how you were acquiring all of the Eternals characters was pretty cool. The one thing I could say about the Dark Reign update is, hey, we got a story quest that gave us a native tier 3 essentially inside there, right? Like there's some good inside of that. Essentially with this Epic Quest, no, it's just a copy paste and they missed out on giving us the good part. I guess, like, you know, the capitalization on the characters that we probably wanted it at this point because they were on our list for years ago, they're finally here. But that's where that's it. That's the best thing you could say about it. The rest of this is just bad to ugly. That's just the truth. So I'm going to try to go over what it is. The story is 100% copy paste. The rewards, at this point, they really have to talk about the rewards. I mean, at this point, you're getting gold and Norn stones. It was unbelievable for me to see that on a stream. I was hoping that was just like a omission, a mistake or something, but for a deluxe pack to still be receiving Norn stones of energy makes no sense to me. Like it baffles me. So we're working on a story quest where we're getting a T2 character that's basically going to tier 3 in Havoc. I haven't finished that out yet, so I'm not going to address Havoc in terms of being good, bad, or indifferent. But what I will say about him is his kit looks all over the place and it looks terrible. Like, that's just my opinion on it. And that might change depending on how he actually performs when I put him into something. But at the moment, I don't see a point to put him into anything. And that's where we start getting into the bad of the rest of these characters. If you are a player who's sitting and hanging on to your wallet at the moment, trying to decide whether or not, you know, this is something that you need to purchase with this update, don't worry. There's no fear of missing out. None whatsoever. And that comes into specifically when we're looking at what you're getting with the update, right? So essentially you're getting the access to Havoc, right? Blast Male villain, Blast Male superhero, mutant who's in the game. He is a tier 3, so you're going to use him over some of your other tier 4 Blast Male superheroes who happen maybe not to be mutants or are mutants. You know, Professor X, Cable, Magneto. I don't think so, right? Then we get Exodus. Exodus is available to you by going through, I think it's Brother in Crisis. He's available to you as the mission shifter rewards, right? Or shitty rewards, however you want to look at that. He's there for you to basically get from there. Do you need to race to get Exodus? No, he's a tier 2 character. You can't even use that dude in anything other than freaking than Shadowlands, so no race to get him either. Then we look at maybe even the Goblin Queen herself, right? She's a tier 3 character, blast type female inside the game. Is she going, does her kit look really good to basically put her inside PvP? 100%. Without a doubt. Can't wait to pair her up with Jean Grey and basically have them wreck shop on a whole entire house. The problem with her, though, is that all of her ability without having that artifact, if you're lucky to get the artifact, then yeah, go ahead and race to get her, right? If you're not lucky to get the artifact, then you might want to slow your roll because she's going to have less value inside of PvP, but she's going to already have less value because they didn't introduce her as a native tier 3. They didn't introduce her as a tier 4. She may turn around in the mid-month and get a tier 4, but we don't know. She's a tier 2 character. Yep, tier 2 Madeline Pryor, right? So that's the bad part in there. So there's no rush to get any of these characters. The one character that's the feature of the deluxe pack is Hope Summers. So Hope Summers is introduced to the game as a combat female superhero, and she does not have very much competition. And I hate to say this, but people are like cheering the fact that, yeah, she's breaking the meta in terms of combat females. Well, let's take a look at that real quick. This is the part where I don't like bootlickers, right? Because it just becomes a problem because you just overhype something that just shouldn't be overhyped. So let's take a look at overall at the combat type female cast in the game. So let's go all elements. Let's look at combat. Let's look at superhero, and then let's look at females, and then all species. So this is her competition currently. The competition was weak to begin with. You get what I'm saying? Like, if you look at this competition, she didn't have very much competition by way of frame anyways. The fact that Nebula was the character that she was going to be competing against the Topple, who basically lasted for all of a month and some change, right, is just the point. The fact that you basically had Crescent as a possible replacement to her doesn't have very much things. Crescent has been traditionally bad. I don't even care if she gets a tier 4. Nobody cares. And then we get the She-Hulk in terms of whether or not she could conceivably be coming to get a character inside here. And guess what? I don't really see this happening, and Tatiana Maslany basically said, hey, we blew the budget on this, so there's probably no chance that we're getting a season 2 and an incentive for the develop team to basically go in and do a T4 She-Hulk. It'll probably come down the road, but it's not there. So the only character that you basically still have in the game who can basically look to topple her is probably going to be X-23. X-23 could receive an update in the Deadpool update, depending if she's going to feature inside there with Wolverine or not. We don't know. There's a possibility that she is, but we don't know yet. It's the only Marvel movie coming out in 2024. So it wasn't like she had a whole lot of goddamn competition. So like to basically say like, hey, she's great, right? She's breaking the meta, or she's obliterating the meta, or she's doing anything to the meta. It's just like it's subservient to the developers. Like, they didn't have a whole lot to hit, and with this update they proved that they can miss it even if it was right there, easily done in front of their faces. Like, that's just the truth, the absolute God's honest truth. So on the face of the value, when you're saying that it's a 7,700 crystal pack or a $50 pack that you're basically investing to, you have no reason to race to accelerate to get any of these characters inside your inventory. Like I said, even when you take this down to just mutant type females, you know what? It's just her and freaking X-23 she's competing against. So there's not a whole lot. It was basically like she was going to be the meta no matter what as a combat type female character. It didn't make a difference whether it was all species, whether it was, you know, it just wasn't going to make a difference. Like, you could open this up to villains as well, like, and just make it combat females, and it's still not a laundry list of things that she had to compete against. So I don't like the idea where it's like Moonstone when she joined the game, right? And you had blast type female. So if we went over here and you have blast type female characters inside the game, and Moonstone was in this when she was introduced over here, she had a litany of characters to compete against. Like, I mean, you look at the characters that were still coming behind her. There were plenty of characters that were going to probably overtake her in the first place. So when she got introduced, it was like, yeah, there's a lot there. Like, now you're looking at it and you basically, I hope she had no competition in the game. So basically, to say that they had to do it, they only had to meet the lowest of bars. A combat type female character was the lowest of bars to actually meet. That's the absolute God's honest truth. I dare you challenge me on it. Just look at that list of combat type female characters. It was a very low bar. A very low bar, and it's a very low bar to maintain when you look up who's behind her. That's just the truth. But either way, let's take a look at the character anyways. So one of the good things about the well, not necessarily related to this update, but specifically to the character kit, was that they've given us so many ways in order to hit the marks on these. I didn't even have to invest in the characters. I don't even have to wait for a uniform option for most characters anymore. Your uniform options used to be introduced to the game, and that was a reason for you to basically say like, okay, I'm going to get these uniform options so I can top off on it or hit the cap on certain things like crit rate, dodge, and, you know, these things inside the game to take the character over. But the uniform was going to make them better in that regard. Now, because of all the spread load of the different ways to hit your account with cards, swords, team up collection, shield archives, and so forth. I hit the max. Like, I mean, the lowest thing that I was on was a crit rate. I was at 70% here, and now you know, I just basically equipped a CTP of Rage, and I'm at 75% plus on the cap. So that was what it was. Now the question is, justifiably, what's going to be the deal with this character in terms of how good is she really going to be? Now, I took her for a spin inside of Gore, World Boss Gore, because realistically, I don't think she's a PvP character at all. I took her for a spin inside World Boss level Gore for just, like, you know, shits and giggles at stage 2, because I've reiterated this so many times. Until they change the rewards, I don't find a really justifiable reason for you to how do you say, for you to basically change this by basically utilizing her for anything else. I just don't see it. Like, you know, like, don't change Gore from stage 2, because they haven't changed the rewards. And yeah, you have the ability to get the boxes on level up stages every 5 levels or so, but the probability rates on those are so low that is it going to really be a meta game changing thing for you? No, it really isn't. So if you're spending money or feeling like you're faced with money to basically get a chance at those boxes, it just ain't worth it. You know what I mean? Just not worth it. So let's take a look at her inside Gore, stage 2. Now, I noticed that she was really weak to attacks, and I'm not necessarily like the best player, but I'm not the worst player either. I think I'm like pretty much average in terms of player base, but I wasn't overly impressed with her on Gore stage 2. So let's take a look at her overall here. I'm going to dodge this because I already know that if I don't, I'm probably going to end up dying. So we're going to go 6, 2, 5, 3, and then 4 to basically get down. And you can see, like, she's just about 15 damage. Now, normally with like Black Panther, I can get that down to about like 12, I think it is. He's combat T4 male, so I'm gonna give the credit there where credit needs to be due, that he is a T4 type character. So 2, 5, 3, and then 4. This is where you can see, like, it seems like her skills don't quite target, and you can see she doesn't take a hit. And that look at that, there you go, you see what I was talking about right there. That wasn't even a purple attack that she basically took, and she died right away, like before you even got out of stage 1. So let's take another look at her over here again to see if I can't make this work. I'm going to be very careful. Now, on most occasions, I do not have to be this careful. I usually just tank the boss in terms of like doing damage to them. I don't worry about the, you know, the purples and stuff like that, and they're able to tank these abilities. 6, 2, 5, 3, and then we go 4. And so we're there into the next level, and you can see how much damage she took in that. Like, she's just about dead. Just about dead, sadly. So let's see if I can survive this. 2, 5, 3, and then 4. She gets like a little heal there, but you see there's like no damage being done on that 2, 5, 3, 4 skill. 2, 5, 3, and then 4. Jesus Christ. Just not enough damage being done. 2, 5, 3, 4. There we go, a little bit more damage, and this is stage 2. Trust me, I've seen plenty of and she's dead. Oh no, I tapped out, my bad. So I don't want to use her over. Like, this is just am I gonna use hope to do this content? I'm gonna be honest with you, no. This is no way I'm using hope to do this content at all. I'm just not. Like, I want to show you guys the difference here, right? So so this is what we're gonna do to wrap out the video here. I'm gonna show you guys this type of content here. So we'll go inside World Boss, for instance, right? And what I'll do is I'll use and I think it's unfair, like necessarily, but I'll use Black Panther as a character comparison for this one, just because, like, it's part of my point. Like, if I'm going to tell you that you should pay 7,700 crystals or 50 crystals, I want to say that you're going to get a character that you can level to the end. and is going to be able to be in game by the time you complete that character. Not you're going to have to wait maybe 6 months to a year for that character to be revisited and get to tier 4 or, you know, anything like that. I want to be able to tell you, no, invest in that character because they're going to be good at tier 4. Not that, you know, the new levels and the new heights that if I was to create a tier list, it's automatically the tier 4s are all the way here and your tier 3s and Transcendence are going to be below because there's no way they compete with them. So let's switch out to Black Panther. Just gonna ignore that one since I ignored it with her. Normally I don't ignore it with Black Panther. I just take the damage and then heal off of his T4 skill. But we'll go through this anyways. Black Panther's a lot slower than she is too. Just realized that. So 2. See the way his 5 tracks on that really nicely. That 5 skill just tracks really well. I think they made improvements to it from when it first came out, like in that update. All right, let's avoid those. And I'm playing with my keyboard and mouse right now, which I hate doing. So we'll go 2, 5, 3, 4, and then we'll go over here. All done. So if you had to look at that bar none and you were to say, well, what incentive do I have to play this character? There's very little, a very low bar, and that's the point of it, right? Is that by still continue to introduce Transcendence and T3 characters, not saying that you shouldn't introduce Transcendence and T3 characters, but when you introduce new deluxe packs and things like that, where I have to pay 50 and 7,700 crystal values for, you might want to consider that maybe those characters should be native tiers, tier 2s at a minimum, or tier 3, native tier 3s, or even take the risk of introducing a character like Madeline Pryor as a native tier 4 and be the first. I get it. You don't want a character to outshine your Jean Grey, but that becomes more of an incentive for you to play. At current, there's just no value in there. She probably has the biggest value inside the deluxe pack, but this becomes a question of, is that value something that you really care about, having a combat type female character who's basically getting a little bit, doesn't have the tankiness that she should have inside there. It wasn't like she was going to have a hard time obliterating ABX metas because her kit was basically built out to have combat, to take on the combat female role for ABX, because she has so many of the ABX skills by writ large. She's got burn, shock, silence, she's got paralysis, she's got snare, she's got it all basically to be able to say like she's an ABX character. But that's essentially where you end up with this character, is she's either basically a support, which nobody's going to use her as a support for Cable, but she's just an ABX character overall. At the end of the day, the problem with the Epic Quest is that it gave no incentive for the player base to get excited about this, because the characters weren't exciting in terms of the way they were presented. It's not that Hope Summers isn't a marketable character, or Havoc's not a marketable character, or Madeline Pryor or Exodus aren't. It's just that the way they were introduced to the game should have been different. Madeline Pryor should have been a tier 4. Havoc should have been a native tier 3. You know, Exodus should have been a tier 3 at the very minimum. You could have had him been the free-to-play option and being a tier 3, and then you could have had Hope Summers probably represent another tier 3. We don't need to have Transcendence and tier 3 characters all the time, especially when you have characters the likes of Hope Summers basically joining the game. But this is the problem of where we're at right now, is like, it doesn't seem like the developers understand what they've given us already, where we have been and where we're going. We're no longer in the era of tier 3 and transcendent characters, and we need to accelerate the path moving beyond transcendence and tier 3 characters, because at this point, to be still introducing these when we have the number of characters that we do across all speed, combat, blast, and universal types, it makes no sense that we're still talking about an Epic Quest charging me $50 for transcendence and tier 3 transcendence level characters and no hope of a native tier 3. It just makes no sense whatsoever. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope this guys gives you a clear idea on how you as a free-to-play player should be spending and using your money wisely. Trust me, there is no reason to accelerate purchasing this if you don't have the crystals already. I wouldn't drop the $50 if you weren't a content creator. There's no native value right now for any of these characters in any of the game modes where they may end up shining. We'll end up having to wait for some of these characters to receive additional upgrades, maybe in the mid-month or in the near future, for them to be to show half the value of what they probably are going to be. And unfortunately, that includes Cyclops. I'll continue, guys, to give you some updates on some other things. Until the next time, though, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps every single time. Until next time, peace.